Thank you very much for turning up this morning. My name's Stroud Glos 18th. I'm the chairman of UKIP Stroud and I'm the parliamentary spokesperson for Stroud, UKIP in Stroud. So please welcome you all, and we're going to open with some speeches. This is a peaceful rally, pro-Brexit peaceful rally, and we're all here just to keep the message alive and say that we're going to eventually come out of the EU. I'd like to introduce you to Ernie Warrender, who's the UKIP national spokesman for small business. So please put your hands together for Ernie.
Well, first of all, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Bad luck. Basically, my name's Ernie Warrender, and thanks for inviting me to Stroud to this rally. And I will reiterate what Glenn said. It's a rally. It is not a march, it is not a protest, it is a democratic rally to ensure that Brexit means exit. We see on a daily basis it's slipping away. The European Bank tell us we're not having our money back for 30 years. Mrs May, Remainer. Her Chancellor, Remainer. Her Cabinet, mainly Remainers. Her Brexit Committee, 11-7, Remainers. Do you get the message? You have two parties in a negotiation who don't actually want it to happen. The EU need our money to pay for the 4,000 bottles of champagne they just ordered. Mrs May doesn't really want to leave in her heart of hearts, but the people do. I welcome this counter group over the other side because you do need checks and balances in all matters of debate, and I think that that is fair. I would also like, very briefly, because I'm going to keep this brief, can we all spare a thought for Zimbabwe, a Commonwealth country, who are undergoing a lot of change at the moment. Thank you very much for coming today, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. Thank you for that. Right, I'm going to say 3 words to you. And these words weren't mentioned much before the referendum, during the referendum, and even now after the referendum, by the Remain side. Those 3 words are 5 President's Report. Not many people have heard of this before, and I don't think they want you to know about it. This is a roadmap up until 2025 on further integration. This is a roadmap to 2025 to create United States of Europe, and we don't want that. So why should we be talking about this now? Some simple facts that show the end point for this plan is the total EU control over the member states and a federal United States of Europe. Some of these milestones are stronger coordination of economic policies, completing the banking union so there will be one central EU bank, launching the capital markets union, integration of capital markets to include areas of insolvency law, company law and property rights across borders. All nations now joining will have to adopt the euro single currency. They are setting up an EU Treasury department which will be eventually override all member states. There will be competitive authorities where nation-based pay bodies will have to take advice on pay rewards to their workers in their country. We've seen the decimation of our services in this country. The funding is being cut time and time again. This is to then make an EU army, and this would lead to, if there was a crisis in this country, we could then see foreign troops on the streets of England, and I don't want that. It's all in the report. This is part of the report, and you can print it off on the internet. I would advise anyone who hasn't read it to actually read it, and you'll be shocked, and you'll then see what the EU plan is. I truly believe that the UK will have a very bright, prosperous future trading with all nations of the world. Let's all be positive and make this historic decision work for everyone. Thank you. What we'd like to do now is we're going to take a walk down Kentridge Street. What we're going to do now is take a walk down Kentridge Street down the high street. Once again, thanks for all coming.
Ignore the result of the general election. There would have been outrage. There would have been fighting on the streets. Because to deny the votes that the British people voted for Brexit, to take back control of their own country, that is the death of democracy. The British people voted to become free from the European Union, to take control of their own affairs, to be like virtually every other country in the world. That's not much to ask. We must honour that. We must stop our politicians from dishonouring the vote of the people. Democracy matters. Democracy is the foundation of our free country. We will be so much better off out of the European Union. We must go ahead with Brexit without delay. Vote for Brexit all the time. Put pressure, please, on your MPs to honour the decision of the British people. We must have the Brexit that the British people voted for. Thank you.
Right, I'm going to say something really controversial here, and that's I love Europe. You know,
Yay.
I love Europe. I love being European. I love our diverse cultures. I like Spanish to be Spanish, the Germans to be Germans, the Italians to be Italians. But what we're seeing here is European killing our cultures and our identity. What they're doing, you know, we have to ask, where are we going to end up with all this? We're just be one mass race, and it's got to be stopped. People need to now start understanding the difference between the EU and Europe, and they need to understand that obviously the EU is a very corrupt organisation. Because of the EU, we are seeing a stagnation of wages from the influx of economic migrants. Also, that corporations can abuse this for cheap labour, all in the name of profit. We're sending £35 million a day to that gravy train, whilst our NHS and our security is on the roads. On that magical summer's day back in June 2016, we all walked to the polling station knowing that for once our vote really mattered. Through all the lies and deceit that was generated by Project Fear, we stood up to the machine and we won. I shall never ever forget how proud I felt to be British that day. I felt something returning to me, and that something was my identity. All you and I had to do was put an X in the box. But obviously there are many people throughout our glorious history that have died defending our freedom. We should never ever forget them. The 23rd of June, however, was not the end of the war. It was just merely a battle. This battle I call our El Alamein. It was a decisive battle, but a turning point in the war to our favour. However, we are constantly seeing the enemy fighting like a wounded animal. Those who seek to overturn the democratic vote are fascists and they are traitors. They must not and they will not win. One of those enemies is the biased BBC, who are playing a huge part in undermining our democracy. Due to them receiving funding from the EU, it is clear that he who plays the piper calls the tune. How often do we hear in their reports, despite Brexit, we've got the lowest employment rate ever, and they still can't understand that, they still bring out that it's despite Brexit at the end of everything that we hear. I liken them to Lord Haw. They are totally trying to demoralise us and they must be ignored. This cartel is full of champagne socialists such as Gary Lineker, who tell us we should be welcoming mass immigration into our society while he lives in his ivory towers and does not have to queue to see a doctor. Or in the Caribbean indeed. He doesn't know what it's like to struggle on the best part of his £2 million salary. 20,000 people have to pay their TV licence just to pay his wages, so we must just think about that. Yesterday, or indeed last night, they were telling us to give all we can to make themselves feel better. We are sick of these people telling us to do as I say and not as I do. The way the BBC treated Donald Trump is no better, and it's not surprising that the BBC were kicked out of the White House and branded fake news. They have no respect for this man who's been elected fairly by the US. The BBC are anti-British, and I urge everyone here today to tear up your TV licences and to stop funding this EU propaganda machine. It's time we sent a clear message to them. They are threatening our democracy. I have this message to those who have voted Remain, and to those who have taken this referendum personally and still feel very strongly about it. Please stop talking this country down and wishing Brexit to fail. We have an amazing opportunity ahead of us if we grasp it with both hands. Leave voters are not racist, xenophobic, bigoted, or indeed stupid. We voted for our children, our grandchildren, our democracy, our sovereignty, the fishermen, the farmers, the steel industry. We voted for our NHS, our schools, our laws, our borders, and our economy. We voted for a greater Britain. We voted in the nation's interests and not our own. We voted with our hearts and our heads. We live in the best country in the world. Do not let the establishment divide us, because united we stand strong. Nobody is suggesting we cut all ties with the EU, particularly the sharing of intelligence. We should always be good neighbours with the EU and the very best of friends. However, it is now time for us to pursue our dreams, our ambitions, and engage with the rest of the world. Thank you.
My brothers and sisters, you are gathered here today because of love. If you have children, you love them. If you have grandchildren, them you love. And you want the best future possible for them. And that is why you voted for Brexit. Now, in today's political climate, as we face a battle for our culture, we have one decision that lays before us. One choice we must make. Are you a populist or a fascist? Because you're one or the other. Now, much has been said about populism. There was the surge in support for Marine Le Pen's Front National. There was the gaining of the presidency of America by Donald Trump. And then there were us, the 52%, the plebs who stood up to the establishment and demanded that Brexit happen. And since that time, the media, academia, think tanks have been using this word populist. Why? Well, there are many isms. There's sexism, there's racism, fascism, and in they threw another one, populism. It's meant to sound evil and to demonize you and I. But what does populism actually mean? It comes from the Latin word populi, meaning the people, the population. And it's the notion that you and I should decide the destiny of our nation. It's simply a posh word for democracy. Now, the very idea here is that our MPs should listen to us, and then when they go to Parliament they should speak for us, and if they don't, we should have them fired at the next election. And that should stand as a warning to any MP who means to impede the progress of Brexit. Now, this is not an evil thing, it's a beautiful thing. It's the very advancement of mankind, and right is certainly on our side. But what is on the other side? There is the left, where Hitler resided. And there is the true fascism. They object to Brexit. They would mean to stop the will of the people, to stop democracy. That is the very definition of fascism. Now, who are those who seek to thwart the will of the people? Is it you and me? Or is it the likes of Gina Miller? Or how about Richard Branson, who said we got it wrong and have to vote again? And then what about the BBC, which has already been mentioned? One of their top reporters, Nick Robinson, not only acknowledged their bias against Brexit, but he warmly embraced it. Those are the people that would look down on you and I as stupid, as fools who did not vote as we were told to do. I'd just like to say, if the Soros-funded Hope Not Hate organisation really wanted to stop fascism, rather than putting me or Martin or Farage, probably half the people standing here, on a watch list, they would join us in marching against the BBC bias. Now, the left like to give the impression that apparently only those who went to university are intelligent enough to know what's best for us. And there was an American president called Roosevelt who did acknowledge that for democracy to succeed, we need a level of education. And certainly, how could we make an informed decision on a matter such as an economic model if we were not aware of those things, if we had not read up on them? However, we are not a nation of backward, stupid people. For all the hustings, the debates, on TV, the speeches, the leaflets, including one that was sent at taxpayers' expense, and all the books, we are not ignorant. We know why we voted for Brexit.
You can go now.
Anyway, in fact, there is a massive problem with our education system. Lecturers took mailing lists of university students, emailed them telling them who to vote, and because they wanted the top grades, they felt pressure to do as they were told. And in academia, there is a hatred of Britain. There is a constant feeling that anybody who voted for Brexit is a racist. I myself was marched off the university campus for waving the British flag. I was told this made international students uncomfortable, this lovely flag here. Well, why should that make them uncomfortable? They came to study here. They must think this is a wonderful country with a wonderful education system which that represents. They should wave it with us. The people have come to view nationalism as some great evil, but this should be no shock to us. The very people that Churchill warned of have come to run our country, and they published near a year ago their Frankfurt School agenda, which they've almost fulfilled. As always, when either the Soviets or the Nazis wish to take over a country, they seek to control the intelligentsia, the universities and the media. And those we have trusted with our care are nothing more than a bunch of slick careerists, a London-centric metropolitan elite who do not have your best interest at heart. They only care for one thing: power. Now, they've closed factories and mines across the north of England, Wales and the Midlands, opting for cheaper imports from India and China. And this is a great sin of greed, where they're looking for quick profits rather than the employment of their countrymen, their family and their nation. Open, the likes of Tony Blair has thrown our borders, ever keen for cheaper immigration, ever keen for oil trade, ever keen for profits. And at the moment there's this ever increasing pressure that we take in so-called refugees. Now, what is the UN definition of a refugee? It's somebody calling at the first safe port of call. So a refugee comes from a neighbouring country to Britain where there's a war or a natural disaster. So which countries neighbour us? Syria, Somalia. Not one of those people is a refugee, and they have no legal right to be here. We must send those folks back. They will not make Britain their home. You can ask me questions afterwards. No, this would be, you want to know what this got to do with the EU, I'll tell you.
Tell us something positive about Brexit. Go on.
This is a question and answer. You can
Okay,
ask
no, not a
afterwards.
single word. I want to hear something positive about
Now, this
Brexit.
would be easy for the EU to do, and it would be perfectly legal for them to turn those votes back. So why don't they? Why do they betray the nations of Europe? Well, the oil-rich Arabian and North African countries made a partnership called OPEC. And basically Europe is at their beck and call. During the 1970s, when America and much of Europe backed Israel in the 70 Days War, they withheld oil from us. We had a 3-day working week. We had a recession from which we have never truly recovered. And so basically we live in fear of those nations. France, which seems to be a land whose national flag is a white bedsheet, has ever pushed for a greater integration of Europe and Arabia. From the days of Charles de Gaulle to the signing of the Barcelona Declaration, which is on the EU website, and you can also see that the European Mediterranean Partnership. They have been seeking to fulfill the plan detailed by Kalergi. He not only designed the EU flag, but he also chose the anthem Ode to Joy, and he said he wants to merge up North Africa and Europe as one country. My brothers and sisters, we live in very dark times indeed. Anyone who dares to question this dream of multiculturalism will be shouted down as a racist. George Soros is throwing money at groups like Hope Not Hate, who have watch lists featuring many members of UKIP and for Britain. And while our police, our schools, our government, our universities and our media are dominated by special interest groups, they do not have your best interest at heart. And it comes as no shock that they turned a blind eye to what happened in Rotherham, where they're very happy to police you and tell you off for posting naughty tweets. We have some of the finest laws in the world, but powers and special interest groups stop the Crown Prosecution Service doing their job. Afterwards. Only last month. Only last month, and this is the very month in which we remember our war heroes. The Labour Party they had the arrogance to invite into Parliament a group called Bent, whose leader Azad Ali he backed the killing of British soldiers. Now this is supposedly to create social cohesion, but clearly anybody who votes for that Anglophobic, racist-infested party hates our country, our people and our freedom. Now the time has come, my brothers and sisters. That populist voice can no longer stay quiet. If we do not make a stand here and now, England as we know it will not exist within 10 years. History clearly shows what will happen. We are on the same path as a country not far from us, Sweden. Now, due to their failure to stop mass migration, their failure to stop the fall in the birth rate, and their failure to push for cultural integration, they now have the highest rape figures in all of the world except for Lesotho, higher than the third world. Just think about that. Sweden is now a third world country, and that is what awaits us if we continue on this path of cowardice. England, I don't think, will exist by the time I'm old, and I don't think your children will have a home. I think you'll descend into an abyss of Islamist Marxism. And I say no. We will not stand by, crippled in fear, heads held low as our nation, the greatest civilization mankind ever knew, disappears and fades off into history. Cecil Rhodes said that to be born British is to win the lottery in life. And we are the finest people mankind ever knew, and if we fall, civilization will be set back 1,000 years. We are the cradle of civilization. This land is the birthplace of modern democracy, of liberty, of the rule of law. It was we who made the greatest advances in engineering. We invented the railways, the computer, the internet. And for all the bad we hear about the British Empire, it is we that went to far-flung corners of the world, and we built schools, we built hospitals, we built roads so people didn't even know what the wheel is, and we taught people to read and write. In the spirit of those brave souls who gave their lives many times before in many battles, the tens of millions who died in World War II for our nation, for Christendom, for civilization, for our freedom. Today we make a stand. Today we say enough is enough. Today we say you will betray the British people no more. Today we say that Britain lives and will not go quietly into that dark night. The British lion shall roar, a fearsome roar, a populist cry so loud, from one end of this land to the other, from Jollo Groats to Land's End, like a bolt of lightning in that pitch-black dark night. We are not finished. We are not dead. We are British, and you will not replace us. We will march on, my brothers and sisters, as one to victory. Yeah.